can't believe this is my 7th year putting on my annual Best Travel podcast for the upcoming year. I know this is a very busy time of year for you, so I want to get right to it. So let's get started. Before we get started, I do want to remind you that our next Active Travel Adventures group tour will be going to Friesland in the Netherlands on a boat and bike tour in July of 2027. We are mostly sold out, but there are still a few cabins left. There's information on the website. Just click the link on Travel With Me up at the top, or you can always email me and I'll send you the information. Right now, all you would need to do is put down your deposit, and then you don't have to pay for it until we get closer to it. It's just you put down a modest deposit just to hold your place, and then I think when it's like 90 days out, you have to pay the balance on that. The cost for 2 people in a cabin is €3,500 total. That includes your boat, most of your meals, and our guide. And we got Tammy, that really cool guy that I interviewed about, was it last July? I think that's what I did. She was the one that inspired me to take this trip, actually. So we insisted that we had Tammy as our guide for this trip. And then you can choose between a manual or e-bike. When you sign up, you can tell them which one you would like to rent on that. It's a very economical, 1 week, like I said, virtually all-inclusive tour. So information on the website, or you can always email me at kit@activetraveladventures.com. We have a great group of people going. I know most of the folks already that have signed up. Most of them have already traveled with me in the past. So I know it's a cool group. You're going to have a great time. So if you're interested, check out the tour and see if you would like to join us. We'll meet up in Amsterdam if you're interested. Take the train from there to catch the boat. And then we're going to have a 1 week wonderful boat and bike adventure together. Now, let's get on with the show. Welcome to the Active Travel Adventures podcast. I'm your host, Kit Parks. I'm excited to bring to you my list of 20 exciting travel podcasts for you to check out this year. I've got lots. In fact, most of these are new and have not been repeated in any of the previous 7 years of this. I do try to mix it up a little bit so you can see some new shows that might pique your interest, that might excite you and get you into travel, give you some great ideas. And as always, they are in alphabetical order, starting with Active Travel Adventures, my very own adventure travel podcast. This one, you have to hike, bike, and or paddle your way across the world to explore new cultures and landscapes. And I try to, each episode, either myself or a guest that I interview, dig deep so you can understand exactly what you'd be getting yourself into when you go on one of the adventures that we cover on the show. I also have multiple how-tos to give you the skills and the tips and the gear advice that you need so that you'll have the confidence to go on your next big adventure. So again, the first one is Active Travel Adventures with moi, Kit Parks. Next up is Adventure Diaries. Adventure Diaries is a storytelling podcast that brings you along on extraordinary journeys through candid personal travel narratives. You can expect emotional highs, unexpected challenges, and raw reflections that capture what adventure really feels like on the road. You're going to love this show because there's stories that travelers tell long after they're home. These are the things that when you think about a trip, these are the stories that you tell and that you remember most. So that is Adventure Diaries. And again, I'll have all these in the monthly download that comes with this episode, or you can find them on the website at activetraveladventures.com. So if you're driving or you're jogging or doing something else, don't worry. I've got it easily accessible to you so that you don't have to take notes. You can just listen. And if something catches your interest, you'll know where to find them. Up next is Atlas Obscura. And Atlas Obscura explores the world's strangest, most fascinating, and often overlooked places. Each short episode dives into curious history, hidden destinations, and cultural oddities that will completely change how you see the map. My girlfriend Lori, who I met on the Portuguese Camino last spring, was a big Atlas Obscura bagger. And so on our trip, we tried to see a couple of the things I never would have seen in a million years had she not told us about this old Navy ship that was a hospital and just very cool little things that are off the beaten path. So again, that's Atlas Obscura. Up next, we have a lot of interesting people that want to bike pack. And in fact, I need to do this myself. I've done shows on it, but I'd like to learn more. And I can do so, as can you, on the Bike Pack Adventures podcast. This show is dedicated to long-distance cycling, bike packing, the culture of bike packing, and all kinds of human-powered exploration. Through interviews and trip reports, the show will celebrate endurance, resilience, and the freedom of traveling by bike. In fact, if you haven't caught it already, you can check my interview with author Steve Silk on the Go West book he wrote about bikepacking from London down to Wales on a recent episode. I'll put a link to that in the show notes as well. So that is Bike Pack Adventures. Another one that's on the list new this year, that's a funny one, is But Did You Die with the Jet Sisters? This is hosted by sisters and travel writers Lindsay and Jet. This podcast blends adventure travel with humor, honesty, and real talk. They share stories of mishaps, growth, and the lessons learned abroad, always reminding listeners that discomfort often leads to the best memories. Again, I keep finding that myself in my travels. It's the things that go wrong, and usually you figure it out. Maybe not the easiest way, but you figure it out. But those are the memories, those are the stories, and that's what you kind of reminisce and think back fondly on in the future. So again, it's But Did You Die with the Jet Sisters? Next up is Counting Countries. I'm a little bit of this, but I'm not as hardcore as some of the guests that you'll see on this show. I think there's 192 countries. And in fact, I read recently that there have been less people that have visited all countries on the planet than have been in outer space. So the podcast Counting Countries focuses on the joy, obsession, and the strategy behind country collecting. The podcast offers thoughtful conversations about travel goals, logistics, and the deeper meaning of ticking destinations off a list. So if you're a country counter, this is the show for you. Follow that with Curious Tourism. Curious Tourism looks beyond bucket lists to examine how tourism impacts culture, communities, and the travelers themselves. It's a smart, reflective podcast for listeners who want to travel more thoughtfully and responsibly. You're going to love this show because how we travel matters as much as where we go. Again, that's Curious Tourism. Another new one on the list is Deviate with Rolf Potts. Now, you may remember that name, Rolf Potts. He was actually quite influential in me on my travel journey, and particularly my long-term travel journey. Back, I don't know, it's been more than a decade, I think, maybe close to 2 decades. He wrote a book called Vagabonding, How to Travel the World Inexpensively, and just opened my eyes to the fact that, hey, you can just kind of backpack around the world. I'd never heard of that. I know it's very common in other parts of the world, particularly in Europe and Australia, but to somebody from the U.S., that was a new concept for me. The podcast Deviate is hosted by the travel writer Rolf Potts, and Deviate explores the philosophy and psychology of travel. So on this show, you're going to expect to hear some deep conversations about long-term travel, of course, creativity, identity, and how movement through the world shapes who we become. This show is less about destinations and more about the ideas and experiences that travel provokes. Again, that's Deviate with Rolf Potts. Now, I apologize in advance for the name of this show that's coming up next, but it is one to check out. It's called French People Are Rude. Now, this podcast humorously they're dismantling travel stereotypes by examining cultural misunderstandings, starting with France. Through interviews and stories, it reveals how much of rudeness is really just cultural difference. You'll find when you listen to French People Are Rude that you'll learn that travel is better when we stop judging and we just start listening. So again, that's French People Are Rude. Another new one is Gone to Timbuktu. Gone to Timbuktu explores the magic of travel through personal stories and conversations with adventurous guests. The show emphasizes curiosity, cultural connection, and the transformative power of leaving home. Remember, wanderlust is just a state of mind. So check out Gone to Timbuktu. It's a podcast that celebrates travel as a catalyst for personal growth. One thought-provoking travel podcast that I really love is Inspire Campfire. On Inspire Campfire, you'll find a storytelling podcast featuring adventurers, changemakers, and explorers who share their defining moments from their journeys. It's designed to motivate you, the listener, to pursue bold experiences. According to Scott, everyone needs a spark to take that next step. In fact, on his show, I'll have to look back. It's been well over a year. I think I was actually a guest on that show, and I'll put a link to that in the show notes as well. It's a great podcast to get you motivated Again, it's called Inspire Campfire. One thing I've definitely noticed since COVID is how crowded places are getting. So a great podcast for you to check out is Low Season Traveler Inside Guide. On the Low Season Traveler Inside Guide, you're going to see a focus on traveling smarter by visiting destinations during the quieter off-peak times. This podcast offers insider tips and a calmer way to see the world. You're going to love learning about places where you can see fewer crowds and get a deeper experience. Again, it's Low Season Traveler Inside Guide, becoming much more important these days. We follow that with the Misinformation Passport. Misinformation Passport investigates the myths, misconceptions, and outdated assumptions about travel destinations. It'll help you to question what you hear to make you a smarter traveler. Each episode takes a closer look at how destinations are portrayed versus the reality. Kind of reminds me a little bit of The French Are Rude. Again, that's Misinformation Passport to help you travel a little bit smarter. Speaking of smarter, the next podcast is Smart Travel, Upgrade Your Getaway by NerdWallet. You've probably seen NerdWallet online. They're one of the bigger points websites to help you figure out how to travel cheaper, faster, better, using points, miles, etc. So Smart Travel, which is produced by NerdWallet, helps listeners make better financial decisions regarding their travel. According to NerdWallet, great trips don't have to wreck your budget. They'll cover points, miles, budgeting, and travel strategy. Each episode helps travelers maximize value and minimize stress. Again, that's Smart Travel, Upgrade Your Getaway by NerdWallet. Another repeat podcast is the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. What I like about this show is that they dive deep into the emotional and personal side of travel. Host Amanda usually interviews 3 guests about a very specific topic and gets their take. And these are seasoned travelers, so they have an interesting perspective. So if you'd like a quick but thoughtful podcast, check out the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. It's ideal for travelers who value reflection and connection. Amanda's conversations focus more on meaning rather than the logistics of travel. If you want a more destination-focused, our next podcast might be just the one you're looking for. It's called The Trail Less Traveled. The Trail Less Traveled highlights unconventional destinations and off-the-beaten-path adventures. You'll love it because the best stories rarely come from the main road. It showcases destinations beyond the mainstream, and they focus on those unique places and alternative travel experiences that get you away from the mass crowds that we're finding today. It will encourage you to explore with curiosity and intention. Again, it's The Trail Less Traveled. If you'd like to hear about travel stories, check out The Travel Diaries. The Travel Diaries features guests sharing formative travel memories. The best travel memories never fade, and you'll hear them here on this show. The Travel Diaries invites guests to reflect on their trips that shaped their lives. From childhood holidays to career-defining journeys, the stories are all personal and revealing. You'll find a nostalgic and intimate look at the power of travel on The Travel Diaries. Getting near the end, we're coming to Wander Woman. Wander Woman centers on women's voices in adventure and solo travel. Wander Woman amplifies stories from women who travel independently and boldly. Episodes cover inspiration, challenges, and empowerment, and they're sure to inspire you to take a little bit of a step outside of your comfort zone and go on that adventure that you're a little bit twitchy about. So again, that's Wander Woman. It's a podcast that will encourage confidence and curiosity in the female traveler. Next up is Winging It. Winging It embraces spontaneous, imperfect travel. One of my favorite ways to travel when I'm not doing an adventure trip that might be logistically complicated for me to just wing it is to pick my destination, book the first night or two so I know I've got a place to rest my head, and then I let the trip unfold as serendipity allows. I might meet somebody and they tell me about some cool place, so I will say, oh, I think I'll go there next. Or I might like a town, stay a little longer than I thought I might. Or I might say, I'm done with this town and move on. You'll get some ideas on how to do this on Winging It because it embraces that spontaneous travel. It shares honest travel stories filled with mishaps, humors, and the lessons learned. This show celebrates figuring things out as you get to them. It's relatable, it's lighthearted, and it's refreshingly real. It's called Winging It. And last but not least is You Should Have Been There, produced by BBC. You Should Have Been There explores iconic historical moments through first-hand accounts. You'll love it because these people have actually been there, and hearing their stories changes everything. You Should Have Been There transports we, the listener, to the defining moments in history through personal stories. The episodes combine travel, memory, with their lived experiences. It gives you a powerful sense of place and time. Again, that's You Should Have Been There, produced by BBC. Travel podcasts are our companions. They educate us, they inspire us, they keep our curiosity alive between our trips. I hope this list introduces you to new favorites and reconnects you with shows you already love. If you have a travel podcast you think belongs on next year's list, let me know. I'm always listening. You can reach me at kit@activetraveladventures.com. You can go to the website, hit the contact button. And again, newsletter subscribers will get this list automatically on the once-a-month email. Note that it is once a month. You can sign up by just emailing me or clicking the newsletter button on the website. And that comes out usually the first Thursday of the month. And that gives you access to every travel planner, every checklist, every packing list produced in the 8+ years I've been doing this show. I don't sell your name. I don't spam you. It's just our way to have a two-way connection. And of course, you can always find the list on the website at activetraveladventures.com. I'm wishing you a very happy 2026. I hope you have some great travels planned. You can always ask me any questions. If you think I can help, ask away. I'm happy to help any way that I can. Again, you can reach me at kit@activetraveladventures.com. I'd love to hear where you're planning on going this year. And it's not too late. I still have a few more cabins left on the Friesland boat and bike trip for the summer of 2027. There's information on the website. Or again, you can email me and I'll get it out to you. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time, this is Kit Parks. Adventure on.